Ukraine attacked the Russian barracks in Lugansk. A series of loud explosions shook the city. Russia's miracle weapons continue to overwhelm the sky. Ukraine is trying to find ways to cope. Moldova received weapons worth $1.5 billion that could threaten Transnistria. The West faces a series of challenges. Ukraine attacked the Russian barracks in Lugansk. A series of loud explosions shook the city. On June 7, the Ukrainian Defense Forces reportedly attacked a Russian military camp in the city of Lugansk, controlled by Moscow. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Defense accused Kiev of using US ATACMS missiles to attack civilian targets in Lugansk, and a series of loud explosions that shook the city were reported. According to Reuters, the Russian Ministry of Defense on June 7 accused Ukrainian forces of firing 5 missiles from the US-supplied Army Tactical Missile System, ATACMS, at the city of Lugansk, eastern Ukraine, currently under the control of the US Army. Russian control. The attack injured at least 20 people, including children, the ministry said. Russian media quoted Russian officials earlier as saying that 22 people, including an 8-year-old child, were injured, while it was unclear how many people were trapped under the rubble of a building hit by a missile. Leonid Pasechnik, the Russian-appointed governor of Luhansk, said late on June 7 that the number of casualties had reached 57, with 4 of the injured having died. Mr. Pasechnik said 33 buildings were damaged, including 2 schools, 3 kindergartens, and the Lugansk College of Information Technology and Entrepreneurship. The Russian Ministry of Defense said in a statement that 4 out of 5 missiles fired by Ukraine were shot down by the country's air defenses. The rocket passed through 2 apartment complexes, the statement said. In addition, the ministry also added that there are still people trapped under the rubble of a 5-story building. Russia's miracle weapons continue to overwhelm the sky. Ukraine is trying to find ways to cope. With support from the West, Ukraine will have more aircraft to deploy glide bombs, but the country still cannot keep up with Russian firepower because the number of bombs supplied is still much lower than what Moscow has on hand. Ukraine seeks to deal with Russia's miracle weapon. The Russian Air Force has deployed about 3,000 glide bombs in Ukraine every month. Satellite-guided glide bombs have a range of more than 60 kilometers, meaning that Russian Su-30, Su-34 and Su-35 fighter bombers can drop these bombs out of range. Firing of almost all Ukrainian air defense systems, except for the country's best and rarest systems. KAB glide bombs are Russia's miracle weapons, Ukraine's Deep State Analysis Group said, saying Kiev practically has no countermeasures. Perhaps Ukraine's forces cannot counter Russian glide bombs, but they can respond with their own glide bombs. To achieve that goal, the Ukrainian Air Force is converting 40 to 50 existing MiG-29 fighters and possibly a few dozen Su-27 fighters into glider bombers by equipping them with rockets. Small Diameter Bomb, SDB, produced by the U.S. This is an important development because Ukraine's small air force, barely 100 Soviet-era fighters for its brigades, is struggling to cope with its large-scale glide bomb campaign. The Russian Air Force is much larger, possessing hundreds of Su-30, Su-34, and Su-35 fighters that can carry 4 or even 6 KAB glide bombs on each mission. This is great news, said Finnish analyst Joni Askola. However, the bad news is that Ukraine probably does not have enough SDBs or ammunition to equip MiG and Sukhoi fighters in the Russian bombing campaign. No one outside the Pentagon and the Ukrainian Air Force knew Kiev had small-diameter bombs with a range of 111 kilometers and were equipped with satellite guidance until photos appeared online late last month, shows a MiG-29 with 6 small bombs under the wings. Ukrainian MiG fighters can deploy glide bombs. Last month, American, French and Ukrainian engineers worked together to equip Ukraine's MiG-29 and Su-27 fighters with extended Joint Direct Attack Bombs, JDAMER, and AASM glide bombs. made in France. JDAMER and AASM both weigh 225 kilograms. The SDB has the advantage of being smaller and having a greater range than the JDAMER and AASM, both of which have a range of about 64 kilometers in the best conditions. A MiG or Sukhoi fighter equipped with SDS can attack up to 6 targets in one sortie, and do so remotely to reduce risks from Russian air defense systems. Another equally important thing is that SDB costs only about $40,000 per fruit. It costs the same as JDAMER, but only 1/5 of AASM. Any additional supply is appreciated, analyst Askola said. Ukraine's surplus of aircraft, but lack of bombs. Apparently, based on the pace of Russia's attacks, the country's industry can produce about 3,000 glide bombs per month. This number requires several dozen Sukhois, each of which can drop 2 to 4 glide bombs per day for a month. Therefore, observers believe that the Ukrainian Air Force should have enough fighter jets to keep up with the speed of Russia's bombing campaign. When Ukraine receives 85 F-16 fighters this summer, they will have more than that number needed. What is clear is that Ukraine does not have enough bombs. France pledged to support 50 AASM bombs per month. Neither Washington nor Kiev revealed how many JDAM and SDB bombs the US sent Ukraine, but the first contract the Pentagon signed with Boeing to supply JDAM to Ukraine in early 2023 was worth $41 million, enough to export 1,000 bombs. Moldova received weapons worth $1.5 billion that could threaten Transnistria. In recent years, the situation in Eastern Europe has rapidly deteriorated, and Moldova is becoming one of the main points of tension. According to the leader of the opposition SOR party, Mr. Ilan Shor, Western countries are planning to implement the Ukrainian scenario in Moldova, including action against Transnistria and large-scale weapons supply. Mr. Shor expressed his views on this issue on the sidelines of the St. Petersburg SPIEF. The above figure argued that the West has become accustomed to achieving its foreign policy goals through the hands of others. He cited Ukraine as an example of this approach, where NATO actively supports Kiev. According to Mr. Shor, now a similar fate awaits Moldova. Western plans include aggression against Transnistria, a region that enjoys a special status and maintains close ties with Russia. Mr. Shor emphasized, "We do not rule out the possibility that a Ukrainian scenario is being prepared on the territory of Moldova." According to records, the West has sent weapons worth about $1.5 billion to Moldova, which shows preparations for future conflicts. The above-mentioned politician especially emphasized the relationship of this breakaway territory with Russia, especially the recently held referendum showing the intention to annex into Russia. However, with Transnistria's defense capabilities, in the event of a conflict, an all-out attack by Moldova and its allies has the ability to quickly solve the problem. The SOR opposition bloc led by Ilan Shor announced its readiness to bring a large number of people to the streets in case Chisinau acted as above. Mr. Shor believes that Moldova's current government acts in the interests of the West, ignoring the interests of its own people. A serious political crisis is taking place in the country, and the opposition is ready to take a tough step. The West faces a series of challenges. The conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, along with former U.S. President Donald Trump's election bid, are testing the Western alliance. According to a recent New York Times commentary, the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, along with former U.S. President Donald Trump's election campaign, are testing the Western alliance. Although American and European leaders have a rare opportunity to show solidarity on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the day Allied troops landed on France's Normandy beach during World War II, but behind the glamour, there are still persistent doubts, especially about the direction of American politics. U.S. President Joe Biden, after arriving in France, will go to Italy, but is expected to skip the peace conference on Ukraine in Switzerland, showing an increase in diplomatic activities in the context of competition in the election year against former President Joe Biden. President Donald Trump, who if he wins the election this November, could have a major impact on the transatlantic alliance. The Western alliance is experiencing an era of revival and renewal, and these various summits will demonstrate that. But we are expecting at the right time when everyone is worried about the upcoming US election. Professor Kupchan, who worked on European affairs in the Obama administration, noted, for the first time since World War II, the internal threat to the West is more serious than the external threat. Outside,